The anti-Polish operation was a wave of genocide committed by the Stalin government. The operation ran from 1937 to 1938. It was committed principally against Polish minorities living in the Soviet republics of Ukraine and Belarus. Other minorities in those republics that were also victims included Germans, Romanians, Finnish and Latvians. During the operation, about 140,000 people in total were falsely arrested, and of which about 111,000 were ethnic Polish. Of the Polish arrested, about 88,000 were executed. And about 18,000 Polish women and children, older than 15 years, were sent to labor camps, typically for a period between 5 and 8 years. Children under 15 years of age, if not taken in by family or friends, were sent to children homes supervised by the NKVD. While babies were sent to orphanages. The NKVD was an organization under the control of the Soviet Union's Commissar for Internal Affairs. Its head at the time was Nikolai Yezhov. The NKVD's main activities were to manage the police, secret police, prisons, the Gulag system of forced labor camps, sentencing, and executions. Typically, Poles were arrested under the false pretense of subversion, or for maintaining connections with Poland, for example maintaining connections with a family living in Poland. Poles were also arrested for speaking Polish, maintaining Polish culture, or practicing Christianity. In reality, Stalin made it a crime to be Polish. The anti-Polish operation was carried out under two secret orders issued by the Communist Party's Central Committee Politburo. The orders were, Order 00485, and 00486. The former order applied to men, and the latter order applied to women, and children. The orders were signed by Yezhov, and he took an active role in supervising their implementation. The anti-Polish operation has a historical context. Its starting point was the Treaty of Riga, signed on March 18, 1921. The treaty ratified an end to the Polish-Soviet War, and which was fought between February 14, 1919, and October 18, 1920. The treaty was drawn up by the Polish and Soviet governments, and redrew the Polish-Soviet borders, and hundreds of thousands of ethnic Poles found themselves minorities living within the new borders of the Soviet Union, in the republics of Ukraine and Belarus. It was these minorities, which about 2 decades later, were to become the victims of the anti-Polish operation, in Stalin's genocide against the Polish people. And next, the major architects of the anti-Polish operation. At the time of the anti-Polish operation, Joseph Stalin was the General Secretary of the Communist Party, and Chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Soviet Union. His murderous campaign against party members ensured that in effect he was the dictator of the Soviet Union. And with the absolute power of a dictator, Stalin initiated the Great Purge. A murderous campaign in which at least 800,000 people were murdered, and relevantly, including 111,091 Poles during the anti-Polish operation. Nikolai Yezhov was Commissar of Internal Affairs, and head of the NKVD, the Soviet Union's intelligence service, and secret police organization. He orchestrated arrests, torture, and executions during the Great Purge, including the anti-Polish operation. Yezhov was to soon afterwards fall out of favor with Stalin and was executed in 1940. Israel Plovsky was the Commissar of Internal Affairs of Belarus, and local head of the NKVD, prior to his appointment in 1937, to the role of the Commissar of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. Under the latter role, Plovsky led the anti-Polish operation in Ukraine. In 1938, Plovsky also fell out of favor and was sentenced to death by the Supreme Court of the Soviet Union. Alexander Uspensky was the head of the NKVD in Orenburgi, and it is where he orchestrated the arrest of 40,000 people. Uspensky was responsible for the mass murder of Poles in the Ukraine. And as directed by Yezhov, Uspensky executed any prisoner for merely being 70 years of age or older. In 1940, he was arrested by his own organization, the NKVD, and executed. Andrzej Wyszynski was a Soviet politician, jurist, and diplomat. In 1935, he was appointed Procurator General of the Soviet Union. Wyszynski designed the legal framework which masked the illegitimacy of the Great Purge, including the anti-Polish operation. And he encouraged the application of torture in investigations, justifying torture on the grounds that a confession made under torture was evidence of guilt. Also, Wyszynski approved the death sentences during the anti-Polish operation. And next, some of the stories of the Polish victims of the Soviet crimes. Józef Chowski, a truck driver for a stonemason, was arrested in May 1938, on the grounds of subversive activity. It was alleged that he was a member of the long-disbanded PMO. And he was also accused of the crime of maintaining contact with Poland because he had contact with his brother living there. Chowski was found guilty and executed. 20 years later, a review of his case found that there was insufficient evidence to prove subversion, and the guilty verdict was posthumously quashed. In February 1938, Piotr Zakowski, an accountant employed by a rural food cooperative, was arrested on the grounds of subversion. He was found guilty and executed. In 1961, his conviction was posthumously quashed. In August 1938, Kazimiera Naukowska, a wife and mother, was found guilty on the grounds that she knew of her husband's alleged subversion, and failed to report her husband to the Soviet authorities. Naukowska's plea that she had no knowledge of her husband's alleged subversion was given no weight. She was sentenced to a labor camp in Kazakhstan for 5 years. In April 1957, a successful appeal resulted in quashing her conviction. In October 1937, Maria Tokarska, wife and mother, was arrested on the grounds that she was aware of her husband's alleged subversion and failed, like Naukowska, to report her husband to the Soviet authorities. Tokarska was barely literate and unable to read the answers written on a document by her interrogators. She was forced to sign the document, including signing a blank page in the document. Tokarska was found guilty, and sentenced to a labor camp in Kazakhstan for 5 years. And finally, some memorials to the victims of the anti-Polish operation, and the repressed. This is a monument on the site where the NKVD executed victims. It is situated at Skorbody Square, Khmelnytsky, formerly Proskurov, Ukraine. The chapel building is from the Polish cemetery destroyed in 1936 by the Soviets. The 2 plaques are dedications to Polish and Ukrainian victims. It is situated at Gorky Culture and Entertainment Park, Vinnytsia, Ukraine. This monument commemorates the victims of Stalinist repression. It is located at a Polish cemetery, in Bar, Ukraine, formerly Poland. These memorial plaques are outside the Church of Mother of God of Fatima in Dalbs, Ukraine, and formerly Poland. And finally, a monument to the repressed, located at the National Historical Memorial Reserve, Bykivnia Graves, Kia Bykivnia, Ukraine.